intro onto it, but okay, we're recording. Hello, it's me,
Hey,
Forrest Bummy, and I am joined today by Aron Lamb, the mayor of Keensburg, Colorado.
thank you for having me.
Welcome on. I know I wanted to have you on before you raced, but you didn't even need it. Like you were one before you even won. So
Yeah, that's definitely the case. I mean, I didn't even attend the last community forum because I didn't think it was necessary. And so it was a nice protest of sorts. Myself and all of my allies chose not to attend because we thought it was kind of weird that the town of Keensburg was paying for and hosting this forum, and that the previous mayor and the board had access to the questions and all these sorts of things. So it was not in any of our interest and wasn't needed, as I won quite handily.
someone. Yeah, why don't you introduce yourself? Give a good long introduction about yourself.
Definitely. My name is Aron Lamb. I am the mayor of Keensburg, Colorado. This is the first time I've ever ran for any office and was quite successful, winning with more than 60% of the vote. My background, I am a registered nurse. I've been doing nursing for about 12 years now. I moved to Colorado about 6, 7 years ago. Like so many other people, came out for a short-term job as a nurse and fell in love with the state and moved out, found a job as quickly as I could, which is not difficult when you're a nurse. Every job I've ever worked, we've had a great need for more. So it's been very nice. But moved around the metro, lived in different areas, tried to keep it at $500 a month for my rent. It was quite successful for many years. And then met my beautiful wife and decided to settle down, get a nice apartment before we were able to purchase our home here in Keensburg.
And that's what brought you to Keensburg, or what brought you out to Keensburg? Just the price of the houses, or
Lots of things. I mean, I'll definitely say the reason that we were leaving, we were actually in Arvada previously, had a nice apartment. Our landlords were not very good though. And in the middle of COVID, when we had the option to just not pay at all, they raised our rent because they knew I was a nurse and she's a school teacher. So they knew that we would pay. And just with our own morals, we couldn't stand to not, to basically screw them over in this way. So despite that, we still paid, finished out our lease, and then we're started looking. Very much decided on Weld County pretty early on. We actually were looking in South Dakota before that. Made a couple trips up, of course, with the whole COVID regime. I mean, I lost my job as a nurse and had to change to a different job because I refused to get the COVID jabs. So South Dakota was pretty attractive, as you can imagine. So we went up, checked out the Black Hills, and it was beautiful up there. And unfortunately, there was a huge influx of people, just like ourselves, that were moving in. So that the only houses were available were brand new builds that you had to put down a huge payment, and they would be ready in 12 to 14 months. And of course, in the middle of all the supply chain issues. So we were not comfortable with that, not to mention the pay cuts that both my wife and I would be taking. It just didn't make sense for our family. So kind of after a lot of decision making and going back and forth, we decided on Weld County for a couple of reasons. One, they did stand up to Polis and the assembly. They allowed businesses to operate. It wasn't their goons that were going in, it was the state's goons that were coming in and shutting down these businesses with the red flag laws. The Sheriff Reams, was very strong advocate for gun rights and against this overreach, which is absolutely unconstitutional. And it is the role of the sheriff at the end of the day, who takes that oath to defend and uphold the Constitution, to not permit or allow these unconstitutional laws. So, of course, we wish these sheriffs across the country would do this a lot more often. But on this case, it was very comforting and positive. So, even more so when the county commissioners completely backed him and put out a couple statements saying, we completely agree, this is egregious what Polis and the assembly are doing. And then 2 years later, when the assault weapons ban 1.0 came out with restricting magazines and allowing these towns to create much more onerous gun restrictions, but not allowing our towns to laxen any of the restrictions, they came out again. Sheriff once more put out this statement. The county commissioners completely backed him. So was kind of for these reasons that we thought Weld County matched our views and our ideals. We hated living in Arvada. Unfortunately, it just became a real crap hole. I mean, within I'd say 6 months of where we were living, it went from just a nice, peaceful neighborhood to there were cops get called once a week because two people were out in the middle of the street fighting, and I mean, it was just it wasn't good. And with our plans to want to start a family, this wasn't the kind of environment. So Weld County is where we were looking for, and we kind of had our budget, so we were looking at a lot of different towns, really anywhere that had houses that were open. Looked at quite a few in Milliken and up that direction. Made a couple offers in the Greeley area that didn't go through, fortunately. And the very last house on the last day that we went, our realtor's name is actually Joshua, and that was the street that we live on. And he's like, I think this might be meant to be. And we
Little sign.
came in, and I mean it was everything that we wanted. And so then coming to the town, going to the little Main Street Cafe, having a meal, coming to some of the other community events, it was okay. We need to make an offer. This is exactly the kind of place that we want to raise our family.
And there you are. And things were still really crazy when you bought, probably with the market, huh? Where you had to basically
Yeah.
give up your first child. And
Well, it was in exchange for a low interest rate, so
yeah, some
uh,
things are worth it, right?
oh yeah. I mean, just to give a little perspective, so we purchased in March of 21,
Yeah.
and some friends of ours down in Florida purchased about 7, 8 months later, bought the exact same, I mean, price of the mortgage, but they pay almost $1,000 more per month just as a result of that interest increase, and it's
Yeah.
only increased substantially since then, of course. So, I mean, they certainly are trying, I think, to go ahead and pop this bubble, but
Yeah. It was
that's on
crazy
the horizon.
how quick it went too, from just like being nuts to like just it was like May 1st of 2022. It was like it was just it was crazy. Then all of a sudden we had all the inventory we've been hoping for the last, but no,
Yep,
less people were buying. So it's just
for
kind of how the
sure.
market works when you mess with it like that. So okay, so then you were in Keensburg for a little bit, and then what made you want to run for mayor?
Well, the real start was when they raised our water rate by 30% in 1 month. And they gave us the notice in November. It's supposed to be effective January 1st. So my wife and I, of course, were very alarmed because we were already paying close to 2.5 times as much as what we were paying in Arvada, which, understanding, the cost of scale, it can kind of make sense a little bit there. But going 30% in 1 month, so my wife and I went to the Board of Trustees meeting when they were discussing this, gave our public comment, which was ignored. And it had been the policy for as long as the previous board had been there that any public comment is not addressed whatsoever. So people would come,
Great policy.
give, hey, we have this pothole over here, any kind of mundane things, and the board just, or the previous mayor would just say, thank you for your comment. Do we have anybody else that need to just move on? And nobody from the town would actually come back and answer that person. So of course, this has the effect of just discouraging anybody from even trying to participate because it's obviously a waste of your time. So my wife and I both experienced this, saw this is how it runs, and they happened to also be hearing a few other big things that were interesting to me. The police department, they were in talks to start a police department as we had never had one in our town's history. They had a couple housing developments that were also in discussion for different pieces of approval or kind of small fine details and some of the broader strokes as well. And then, of course, this water issue. So these kind of three things really got me worried because I saw how the town was operating. We had the former town manager who really ran the show. I mean, it would bring everything to the board. The board would rubber stamp whatever the town manager would bring. And of course, this town manager was the one that was doing the negotiations with different housing developers and all of these big tasks. So essentially, she was the one person that was running the entire show. So seeing how that was ran, and again, the response was nothing, and actually did have one other board member afterwards talk to me and say, well, we haven't raised the water rates in a while, so we think we need to. And that was kind of the reason and justification. So then when we got our water bill for December, that rate increase had already been applied. So 1 month earlier than what they had said. So of course we went and like, what the heck? It says January 1st. Why? Like, well, yeah, you don't really know what you're talking about. This is correct. Well, then on the next month's bill, everybody got a $30 rebate for this mistake without actually acknowledging it, so that's just kind of how things were operating. So at that point, I realized that there's a good opportunity here to really save our town. And talking after being in the community for about a year, going to the different events, I mean, this town is unique in that it still has that small town feel and that community where you pretty much know everybody, where you still have regular events. We have, a tree event. We have movies in the park. We have a parade. The Christmas parade, as well as for the rodeo, a huge parade. Here in Keensburg, we have the only rodeo in all of Colorado that is not funded by a single taxpayer dollar, and they are very proud of that and advertise it on all their stuff. So that's just kind of the mindset for the people and that live out here and are in my community. So I had a pretty strong suspicion that I would have a strong chance, even given my biggest detriment, in my opinion, was that I hadn't lived in the town for 20 years like the previous mayor had. I'd been here a relatively short amount of time, but the big benefit was for that same reason. I didn't have any of the baggage that he had, and so many of the others that had lived in town for their entire life, had all this bad history with different people for different reasons. And I was able to come in, give my vision, my concern for the water price and the quality, concern for all these new housing developments coming in, which I have got some pushback as an anti-libertarian because I'm not allowing these developers to come in and set up, build out these neighborhoods. And that can be a fair point. But at the same time, it should be done appropriately and in a way that the people that actually live there are happy with it. Because this is not just, in a lot of these situations, it is being incentivized for these developers to come in. And given the previous history of just rubber stamping everything, what you got, the main result that pissed all the citizens off is this new neighborhood called Evans Place. It's about 15 years old at this point, but the streets are so narrow that you cannot get a fire truck down the middle when you have people parked on both sides. And this is something that was directly approved by the previous board and the previous mayor, who in one of the community forums, not the last one I mentioned, I skipped one of the earlier ones that was not ran by the town. It was a private thing ran by the newspaper. He admitted that he was personally at fault for allowing that to happen, that he overlooked it. And then the next week in a different forum, he said, oh, well, actually, it wasn't my fault. It was there was a small line in all of the regulations that they exploited and allowed this to happen. Like, okay, either way, this is the history of our town, and this is something that our citizens don't want to see happen again. They don't want to see our small town turned into freaking Reunion or Aurora, where you just have acres and acres and acres of cookie cutter homes where people don't even know their neighbors, where you don't have enough space in your backyard to have a garden or chickens. And so, if that's not libertarian, I don't know how else to argue it, but that's what I'm trying to do for my people.
Well, don't they have for like a lot of the infrastructure for a lot of these developments, isn't it somewhat like bonded out, or like how are they? I feel like I learned that at some point in real estate school, just like how they basically bond it all out to do the infrastructure, and then the taxpayers end up paying it anyways within the community sometimes. But so it
Yeah.
is private property for like, but it's also there would be government involved, so there has to be some sort of, I guess, oversight.
Without a doubt. And again, if we already have the regulations, we already have all this framework, you can't expect me in the situation to operate in a perfect libertarian manner because I can't. I have a lot of things that are restricting what I am able to do. So what I'm trying to do is to shape it in such a way that makes our people happy while also giving more freedom, while giving people the confidence that they can trust what I'm doing. so that when I do start to get to the more, say, radical libertarian types of things, that it's not going to be a fight. It's going to be okay. He already has our trust. He already knows what he's doing. And I mean, I would just say the two biggest examples that I am proud of so far is we removed that former town manager, which just a funny side note, the previous mayor, after I won, was kind enough to offer to have coffee with me, give me a little heads up and insight into what to expect. And at the end of it, I asked him, what do you view as my biggest challenge coming into this role? And he said one word, and that was that person's name.
Let's just honest.
Yes, he was, and he was not a very strong leader. He in by in any stretch. So I mean, again, given the fact that they had just been rubber stamping it, that was already obvious. So our very first meeting, as soon as I was sworn in, that was the first action of the board. So we chose not to reappoint that person, and then it was a little scary time for the town because all these people, that is their boss. I'm the mayor. I'm the head of the board of trustees, but I'm not anybody's manager as far as the town personnel is concerned. So it's important to kind of understand in our town that that's how it works. So there was about a month and a half there where we didn't have a town manager and everything functioned perfectly fine. And that's what I knew was going to happen, and that's what I reassured all of these people because at that first, it happened on a Monday. Tuesday morning there was an all staff meeting. Myself and my the assistant mayor that we selected, who was a very close ally that I helped get elected as well, came to the meeting and just reassured everyone. The only reason that the board made this decision is that we were confident that each of you are good at what you do and you don't need direct supervision at all times. And you still have your department heads and you still have this whole entire leadership structure. The board did choose to approve the budget as it was written, which I'm not too happy with, but it was the end of December. We didn't have a lot of time. So that's something that going into this year, as we're creating our budget for next year, going to focus a lot on getting as much just bull crap and waste out and focus on projects that people actually want, and ideally get to the point that our finances are as such that we can even decrease the property tax rate, decrease some of these other tax rates. I just saw an article last week about a town, I think in Texas, that completely abolished property taxes and for their town, and they've been thriving. They've just doing really, really well, as you would expect. Again, from our libertarian perspective, that makes sense. If you think of taxation as a means to decrease something, such as with cigarette taxes or marijuana taxes or any of these things, if you do it with income or property, you're going to have the same effect. You're going to have less of it. So that was really great, getting rid of that town manager. We were able to find an interim town manager who I really like. He is very eager to please the board and to make me happy, which has been very helpful. So he has a lot of knowledge. He had been a town manager his entire career, essentially, had retired from Commerce City. And like so many people who have incredibly active careers, when they retire, they cannot sit still. So, so there's a kind of whole class of people that are in that same way that come in. He doesn't want to be the permanent town manager. He wants to help us for about 5 to 6 months or until we find one. He has agreed to stay over and overlap with whoever that we do hire, which gives the board flexibility. The board has agreed that we don't necessarily need somebody that has government experience. If you have owned a company, if you have managed at a high level, if you have done negotiations, if you work with budgets, then those experiences are perfectly adequate to cover. And our starting salary is $125,000 for this position. So
Nice.
if anyone listening has any qualifications that they think meets that, please apply. You can go to townofkeensburg.org to see the listing. I believe it's listed. The board directed to get that posted and everything earlier this week. Or you can email that to manager@tok.org. And again, the interim manager is not he doesn't want the position, so there's no conflict there. He's just collecting everything and can be making recommendations. But I believe the board would be very happy to pay 125,000 for someone who may not have that government experience than 150 or 160 for someone that does, which is what most of our surrounding towns pay for a town manager somehow. It's still astounding to me that the wage is that high.
I know, isn't that crazy? It's like
Yeah.
when you work in the organizations, a government or quasi government, and you're like, wow, we have to bring all this money in to pay this. Like, wow. How
Yeah.
many town employees are there?
I think probably less than 30.
Okay.
Yeah. Probably between 25 and 30. But that, I mean, before we had the police department, of course, it was less. We have about, I think, 7.5 for the police because one of the detectives is part time. But
Okay.
let me say the other thing I'm very proud of, and again, an actual libertarian success, so to speak, was us removing the prohibition for people to sell the eggs that their backyard chickens produce. For whatever
It was
reason,
an actual ordinance or like an
yep,
actual.
yep, there's a whole section. It's about, I don't know, 2.5 pages long. If you want to have chickens, here are all the rules and regulations that they decided that they needed to put in place. So I saw that as a low hanging fruit. Over this summer, we're going to be coming back and not just this ordinance, but a lot of the different ordinances, seeing what we can do to get as much bull crap out and just nonsense government regulation that someone put in place because they were pissed off their neighbor and they had the position of powers there, all that kind of just crap. And again, I don't think I said it earlier in this episode so far, but when I won it, I didn't just win by myself. I won with 3 other board of trustee allies. So our board consists of 6 trustees and 1 mayor. So that gives us the majority. And we are all on the same page on all of these kinds of issues. So when it came to the backyard eggs thing, I was surprised that even 2 of the people that weren't my allies voted on my side with it. So kind of just given the generic conservative kind of nature, more government is not a good thing, less government's better. I think that I'm going to be able to easily persuade on a lot of different topics, not just this. But I have gotten quite a bit of positive feedback for successfully getting the legalization of eggs in our town.
Well, and like what you said, it's kind of, there's a method to your madness. You're going to slowly build, and like the little lessons they see. Yeah, this government, we don't need to have a government ordinance about that. All these little things that you'll build, and then they'll be on board with the bigger things too, which will be cool.
Definitely, definitely. So that's been really exciting. And, aside from that, I've just been very happy that it's becoming more known across the country in the libertarian spheres that I've won because so many people are just blackpilled on this topic. Politics is a waste of time. You're much better off just growing a garden, having a family, starting a business. But if you pick the right kind of races, you can be successful. We
And
can,
why not try? Why not try? Like, why every strategy is welcome? And it's
yes,
like that's what I don't get is putting down strategies. I'm like, someone can do all those things and maybe throw some energy. That's why I'm doing it. I'm like, I have energy to throw towards a political process. Do I think it'll always work? Hell no. But
no,
like, why would I not try? It's just one thing you can do.
exactly. And I mean, you could do both. That's exactly the point. I mean, I ran for this office. I had a kid. I got a garden. Uh, Appearing on these kind of podcasts to spread the message that we can win, and that Project Decentralized Revolution is in full swing right now. And these tour stops that are coming up are going to be awesome. I'm so excited for all these
Oh, yeah,
guys coming to
you're
Denver.
teaching, right?
Yep, yep. I'm
Did you
running
want to
a
like
seminar.
promo that a little bit and what you'll be doing?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So it's kind of funny. I had a conversation with Michael Heiss a couple weeks ago, and he asked if I wanted to participate and speak at it. I said, "Oh, sure, that'd be great. I don't mind talking and letting people know that we can win and explaining what I did, what I found to be successful, what I thought was a waste of time, quite frankly, what was a waste of money, and then just the nuts and bolts to it. I mean, it can be very daunting to try and learn the entire code for campaign finance. And I can tell you, I wasted a lot of time, a lot of time. I mean, I've read for probably 2 hours, just the actual documents. I did a seminar that was hosted by the Secretary of State that was like 5 or 6 hours. And I can tell you that everything I needed to know, I could have just gone to my town clerk and she would have told me the specifics, because 80% of, at least, of all that I went through was just talking about, basically nonprofits, super PACs, all these other kind of ancillary
Tracer.
things. And anything that was related to actual municipal races, 100% of the time said see your town clerk, because each municipality creates its own process for this. It creates its own regulations regarding campaign finance, for instance. So the town of Keensburg has nothing on the books whatsoever. And as far as my town clerk, who's been here for quite a while, knows, I'm the first person ever to form a committee and accept donations. So they had to create a brand new form just for me to use. And it was funny because they obviously, she had got a copy from a different clerk. I want to say in Steamboat or one of the mountain towns, and there was 2 or 3 places she forgot to substitute that town for Keensburg on it. But I mean, it wasn't that big of a thing. I mean, I was very worried because, I mean, the risk of jail and all these things you hear when it comes to when you're accepting other people's money, and you have to follow all these laws. And we are an outside type of party, so we're not going to get any kind of leniency when it comes to this stuff, as unfortunately we know what's going on with the state party right now. But
Yeah.
it's okay, you get through that. But at the local level, it's not that complicated. It's very easy and straightforward.
Yeah, so as I told you earlier, I'm thinking about, this isn't an official announcement. I'm thinking about running for a district out the district I live in here, city council for Arvada, because I don't know, do you know Merle? Have you ever met Merle before?
I don't think so. What's the
So
last
he's
name?
what is his last
Is
name?
it Bowser?
I'll have to look it up.
It's okay.
But he lives in Arvada as well, so and he's in District 2, so he's gonna run in District 2, like he's for
Nice.
sure. So
Awesome.
then this morning I actually emailed the clerk and she emailed back right away with this like a basically like bullet point what to do, everything. So yeah,
Mhm.
like it already looks good. And luckily I've
Perfect.
had some experience with Tracer already and stuff. So
Well, when
but
you run at the municipal level, you don't have to deal with Tracer at all.
okay, that's good then.
Yeah,
Good.
because it's the clerk that does it. I mean, it's still going through Tracer, but you submit essentially a paper version of everything, which is kind
And
of a
they do the
pain.
work.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, so,
Cool.
so it's not. But before we get too far off, I did want to say it's
Okay, yeah. The
takehumanaction.tour.com.
dates.
That's the website. You can get all the dates for the upcoming events, and it's gonna be really exciting. I'm super stoked. So
I'll
because
be I'll be at the one, and because we're doing a Mises table, and then it sounds like we get to go to the workshops for free. So like
perfect.
I'll be there. I'll be there.
Yeah, it's going to be May 27th and May 28th. The 27th is the full day with all the speakers and Scott Horton, Maj Toure. I mean, we really got a killer lineup. Basically everyone but Dave. Dave Smith is coming. And then on Sunday, that's when my seminar is going to be from 10 to 2. So gonna have a lot of fun telling you about what I learned and what you can do to emulate my success.
So we will win. I am like you were like I've told you a million times. You were such a white pill, and there's just been so many white pills lately. Even me going down to the Capitol and telling them
Mm-hmm.
off to their face. That's a
Oh
straight
yeah,
white pill. Like
heck yeah.
I was like, "Oh, I can go do that. I can do that. I can go tell them stuff and be very polite, but not polite right to their face. So,
Corporate. You
yeah.
could choose someone out in corporate. It's a different language.
Yeah, so that's been fun. How long from when you just like started to run to when the election was? How long were you doing stuff?
So, do you remember, was the convention last year in February, the
It was
state
like the end
convention?
of March, I think.
Okay, so it was around that time that I was pretty
Or
sure that I was going
it
to.
was February. You're right. Sorry, go on.
Oh, no problem. So I guess it was pretty early then. So pretty soon after those meetings, I kind of got things going, because I was mistaken. I believed that our election was in April. So I thought I was late to the party, quite honestly. And I fortunately found out that, like a lot of the local municipalities, they have elected to make it match with the general election, mostly for a cost thing, because then the town just pays Weld County a fee to take care of the whole election, versus all the small towns that do off season elections in April. The town covers the whole cost. The town actually runs the election itself. So they had just changed. This was the first year that it was happening in November, and they had also increased the term limit for mayor from 2 years to four, which was pretty convenient timing. Because of course the previous mayor had been in for 6 or 8 years, so he just assumed, this will just be easier. I don't have to campaign again. Anyway, so that was really nice. It was probably May or so. Again, my wife was pregnant at that point. Uh, she was kind of ill. I mean, fortunately, everything worked out great. We have a beautiful baby girl. But like a lot of pregnancies, she was sick at different times. And at one point, just basically told me, I don't want you to do this. I don't think it's a good idea. And so I didn't argue. I just said, okay, that's fine. And then maybe June, middle of July, she just asked, she's like, so you're running for mayor, right? I was like, what? No. I mean, do you think I should? Do you still want me to? She's like, oh yeah, definitely. And I was like, okay, cool. So then, completely shifted back into gear, went over to the town admin building, requested the packet, and they didn't have it available yet. But said that there was going to be a meeting. The meeting got pushed back an entire month. So it was like, I think, beginning of August when we actually got all the information that we needed as far as how many signatures, 10, and how, what the dates were, all these sorts of things. So at that point, got everything going, got my website set up. Remembered that I had a Twitter a long time ago that I just saved with my own like real name, and was able to just activate that on for the campaign, and which is just Aron_Lamb, and use that. I mean, it wasn't really helpful in a small town like this. I think I might have 2 people in my town that actually follow me on Twitter still now. I mean, some people still use Facebook, the really old people, but most people are kind of in that middle range, and they get their information word of mouth. So I didn't really think that there was any interest or really any need to do any kind of social media advertising or start an Instagram, start a Facebook, do that whole spread. It just wasn't a productive use of my time.
And then, and you just had to get, how many votes did you have to get to pass?
Well, I had to get 10 signatures to get on the ballot. And I use that as a great kind of introductory campaigning tool, because I'm knocking on people's doors. Hey, my name is Aron Lamb. I'm interested in running for mayor. Will you sign this? It's not saying that you're going to vote for me. It's not voting for me. It's just saying you're okay with me being on the ballot. So
Right.
I filled out the whole page. I think there was like 35 slots. I should have asked for more, because again, it was just such an effective campaigning tool, because I had a lot of people. That's how they first learned about me, wanted to tell their friends, what else can I do to help you, sort of thing. And at that point, I didn't have any of the campaign stuff set up. Couldn't accept donations. I was a little, I guess I'm not sure entirely if I could have done that before that I was an official candidate or not, but it wasn't the way that it ended up happening. So after getting all those signatures, getting everything submitted, I get certified as an actual candidate, and then the real campaign starts. And Keensburg is a town of about 2,000 people, but that includes some of the surrounding areas that aren't actually in the town limits, because we have a lot of farmland, of course, and different agriculture. So I thought my best use of time and money was getting yard signs and doing door knocking. So jumped on that, got almost every home in town. There's quite a few that people aren't home, or are abandoned, or whatever, but definitely made a good effort. Had the help of both the Mises Caucus as well as the LPCO, with Aron King, Brandon Wark, and Kyle Fury all coming up to help with door knocking on different days. Did a lot of phone calling. I paid. One of the things I did pay for was the access to the voter registrations through the county, which gives you, if they provided their phone number, it's right there. And then you can kind of break it down to different demographics, to just libertarians, unaffiliated, et cetera, and kind of do, different things. So, of course, in Colorado, if you're registered to vote, you get your ballot mailed to you about 3.5 weeks before the election. So I made an effort as much as I was able to get the bulk of my campaigning done before that date, so that as soon as they had them, they already had the opportunity. They more than likely had a preference of who they were wanting to vote for. And then after that, continued door knocking. I did a lot of what I call drive-by campaigning, where in some of these, small redneck communities like mine, people love to hang out in their garage and drink beers and just bull crap. So I have my stack of papers, and with myself and the allies that I'm encouraging other people to vote for the board of trustees, and we just stop and come up and start a conversation. Hey, I'm Aron Lamb. I'm running for mayor. These are the reasons. Can I give you this paper? And about half the time they would offer a beer, and then you'd have a beer and have have a good conversation, and they'd tell their friends and family, and can I get a yard sign? And it's just that kind of organic campaigning seemed to be most effective for me.
Yeah, that door knocking, that's going to be huge, I think, in my mind stuff too in this area. And it's just, like, why would you not want to do that? You get to talk to people and change, not even like change people's minds, but plant seeds of whatever,
And I would definitely say, again, assuming that your audience is 99% libertarian, I didn't really bring up much libertarian stuff when I was running. I think that is a mistake that a lot of libertarians make, quite honestly. I got my library right here with all my Rothbard and Ron Paul, and even Ryan Dawson, and all kinds of stuff in there. But I didn't bring up any of it because it wasn't necessary. It wasn't relevant. I brought up the issues that mattered, which was the water and the housing. I knew those were going to resonate with everybody. And I also particularly targeted people flying Trump flags, flying Biden flags, because I knew I could speak to them on the level of Polis freaking sucks. Like, these are all the things. We need a strong mayor that's going to try and stand up and protect our town from what he's doing. And of course, that always resonated quite heavily as well.
Yeah. It's amazing. Everyone I talk to, they're just like, they don't know how Polis won because they're like, nobody likes him. Like, nobody. It's crazy.
Nope.
Oh, let's see. What's coming up for you? What are you excited for?
Let me pull up our calendar. I can promote the town a little bit. Of course, this time of year is very cold, so we don't really have many events or anything. The next big thing is going to be our Tree City USA event, which I'll get that pulled up and talk about in a minute. But as far as in the town, different regulations and stuff, there's not a whole lot at the moment. The big issue, was getting a town manager, and now we're trying to find a permanent town manager. So again, if any of your listeners even think they are remotely qualified, please submit their application and cover letter. Aside from that, we did shoot down a really silly program that the state of Colorado is pushing down to these police departments to put a sticker on the catalytic converters to try and prevent theft. And that sticker acid etches a serial number into the catalytic converter. And I asked the chief, couldn't you just use an angle grinder and grind it right off? And it's just the same. And he said, well, I don't really know anything about power tools, so I can't speak to that. Like, okay. And then, my assistant mayor also was very much against this program. It was like, it seems like a giant waste of people's time, of your time. People have to go get all this stuff done. And how's it actually going to do anything to prevent what you are claiming it is going to? And it wasn't ever a good answer. So we were able to just completely kill that. And chief wasn't very happy, of course, but that's okay.
It would be like having to hand out stickers would be more work anyways. Like, you think you'd be.
Yeah, and there was another piece of it too, that the government, Colorado government, was going to be giving a kickback of $1,200 to each person that got their catalytic converter stolen, up to 10 people. So it kind of incentivizes it, certainly. And I asked the chief, I said, Chief, are you aware of any other government program that rebates someone for stolen property? No, sir, I'm not. Okay, yeah, that's kind of what I thought. This is bizarre.
Is Weld County home rule? Or
Yes.
yeah.
Weld County is home rule. Our town is a statutory town.
Okay.
So we don't have as much freedom, unfortunately. We still have to abide by state of Colorado statutory town rules until Weld County is no longer part of Colorado.
Okay. Next, that's the goal, I guess.
I guess the end result, I don't think it's, I mean, it certainly is a goal, but I think it's an inevitability at this point, given the animosity that Polis and the 75% Democrat controlled assembly, they hate oil and gas, they hate rural towns, they hate agriculture. I mean, they have no understanding for our way of life to even have the potential to respect it. They just hate it
Yeah.
outright.
No, and they make these bills and they bring these bills and they have no idea how anything works in the real world. Like that's been very interesting following the legislative stuff now. It's just been like, who are these people? What do they think they're doing? Like, because
It's
they get it and
insane.
they've gotten away with a lot of it for
Yeah.
so long.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, I'm so disheartened by this whole gun stuff that's coming through. I mean, I don't see any way that it's not going to pass. I mean,
Oh,
it's,
well, did you hear the theory
please.
is they're saying that Polis, in a bid to look more libertarian and get conservative votes for president, will
Sure.
veto it and say it's unconstitutional.
I'll praise
That's
him for it
I know that's like
as much
that's
as
what
I
some
just
people are
detest
saying
him.
that
I
might
will praise
happen.
him for it.
Yeah.
I mean, it'd
So
be a smart political
we'll
move.
see. Yeah, exactly. That's what I think people are like. I mean, just to get the conservative, get some conservatives back on his side.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
the way to do it. But
That'd be a
you
start.
I think you're gonna promo your Tree City. Your
Yeah. Yeah. Let's see if the town website ever loaded. Tree City 2023 coming the first Saturday of May, which is May the 6th. May the 6th, that's in Keensburg. We have a really wonderful park called Shea Park. Very easy to find if you come down. Last year, we were giving away a ton of little saplings. So if you don't even have to live in Keensburg, but come on up. We had food trucks. I think we had I don't remember if we had a band or not, but it was just a really fun time. And again, come get some free trees, take them back to wherever you live, plant them. And it's always good
stop
to
in
have
at
more
the little
trees.
cafe there
Oh yeah, well, yeah, that should
in
still
the
be open at
morning.
that time. Yeah,
Yeah.
that place is so good. I'm
I
telling
love
you, it kept my wife going. Like I said, during her pregnancy, there was about a 3 month period that she had a burrito every single morning. That's the only thing that she could stomach.
I love it. All right. Well, anything else you want to add in?
No, let's say thanks for having me on. Follow me on Twitter, Aron_Lamb. You can see how it's spelled there, nice and unique. And come move to Keensburg. If you move to Keensburg before November of this year, you will be eligible to run for the board in the next election. And I'm looking to get 3 more allies on, so we have a wonderful unified board.
I love it. I love it. All right. Well, thanks everyone for tuning in, and and thank you, Aron. It was great.
Thank you.
Thanks.